Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to True Crime Fridays with your mistress of ceremony, Lady Nyca. In our first episode of our True Crime Fridays, I want to tell you the story of Tracy McCarter. Miss Tracy McCarter, back in March 2020, uh, was a nurse at Well Cornell. She was arrested for the death of her estranged husband, James Murray. The pair had been separated since July of 2019 after Murray, who is white, reportedly kicked, struck, and choked McCarter, who, as you see on the screen, is a black lady. By the time they separated, he had been in and out of rehab 5 times through his drinking and violence, even though the drinking and violence had escalated, okay? According to court documents, Murray was drunk and came to McCarter's apartment after locking himself out of his Airbnb apartment and demanded money to buy more alcohol. She was then attacked by Murray, pushed against a mirror that nearly fell on them both. McCarter allegedly picked up a knife and held it out in front of her to stop him, but Murray kept advancing towards her. The knife entered Mr. Murray's upper right chest. When police arrived, McCarter was performing CPR. Murray was brought to the hospital and later died. Now, here's where the case goes left, right? McCarter was arrested and held without bail for 6 months at New York's Rikers Island, despite the jail reoccurring COVID-19 outbreaks. Meanwhile, the pandemic had closed all courtroom and grand jury hearings. So she basically had to sit in jail without a resolution for 6 months, okay? So this woman was just left to sit and wait it out. Then, September of 2020, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office submitted McCarter's case before a grand jury, which indicted her for second-degree murder and manslaughter. 2 days later, Tracy McCarter was released to home confinement and electronic monitoring. In 2021, Tracy's lawyers filed several motions, including one to dismiss the indictment because Manhattan Assistant District Attorney Sarah Sullivan had excluded Tracy's statement to the police in the in that Murray had attacked her. In another motion, they argued that one of the responding officers wrote in the police report that Tracy admitted to stabbing Murray. But in the transcription of the body cam footage from another responding officer, several officers used the word stabbed while talking amongst themselves. However, Tracy McCarter never herself said that word. In her application for at least 3 search warrants on Tracy's home and electronic devices, Sullivan included one of the officer's statements that Tracy stated, I let him stay the night. I tried to help him. He tried to take my purse and I stabbed him in the chest. Tracy's lawyers argued that their client never made that statement. They also noted that when asked about the different wording in her application for search warrants, Sullivan told members of Tracy's defense team she had to refresh, air quotes, the officer's memory. Now, this is sounding very set upish right now, and it's not the first time because a Staten Island judge vacated a 2018 conviction on a man after body cam footage showed officers planting marijuana in his car. Prosecutors didn't turn the footage over until the man's defense team until months after he pleaded guilty to avoid being sent to Rikers Island. So that's establishing a pattern. Okay. When asked for a comment, Manhattan DA Cy Vance at the time office forwarded Sullivan's response in which he argued that because Tracy did not make the alleged statement during the police interrogation, prosecutors was not obligated to introduce other facts that supported her defense. I'm gonna read that again for you because I think I want to make sure you get this. When Tracy McCarter's lawyers asked the Manhattan DA at the time, who was Cy Vance, his office forwarded Sullivan response in which she argued that because Tracy did not make the alleged statement during a police interrogation, the prosecutor was not obliged to introduce other facts that supported her defense. So, they only will provide the information that supports their case theory. So basically, the prosecution felt Tracy was not defending herself and that she did, in fact, stab her husband because they're trying to take um, the purse evidence that shows something, they're not going to show anything that's going to go against their case theory. You know, it don't matter that it's records showing that she was afraid of him and that there was a history of violence and that she did in fact try to help him after the stabbing. All of that to be introduced by the prosecution would be inconsistent with their case theory, so they brushed over it, all to win a conviction on this lady. A judge did deny the controvert, meaning that the search warrants were valid, and was still deciding on a motion to dismiss the indictment out. The court date was set for January 14th of this year. By then, Vance would no longer be Manhattan's district attorney, and the successor, Alvin Bragg, seen here in the photo, had previously tweeted support stating that survivors should not be prosecuted for self defense. Okay? That's what he said. And in an update that I found from a couple of weeks ago, in this Women's History Month, people may be celebrating and honoring some black women, but they are taking little action to protect us. That failure includes Manhattan District Attorney, now Alvin Bragg, a black man who has spoken often about correcting the biases embedded in our criminal system, but he has uh, yet to do anything about Tracy McCarter. I want to show you guys that he did actually tweet out that he felt like she deserved some justice and what was happening to her was a travesty, okay? But 2 years since Tracy McCarter, a black mother, a nurse, living and working in New York, was arrested after surviving a domestic violence assault during which her estranged husband died. Despite the evidence that she was defending herself and provided her abuser with medical care after immediately calling police, she was wrongfully charged with murder by the Manhattan District Attorney, Cy Vance. Cy Vance is no longer in office. It's Alvin Bragg, the man seen here, who said that he was against prosecuting victims of domestic violence. The prosecution fought to keep her incarcerated on Rikers Island after her arrest, despite the high COVID 19 spike, which substantially was impacting people who were incarcerated. She endured 17 months on an electronic ankle shackle, lost her job as a healthcare worker, and missed the birth of her grandchild, and now lives with trauma we can't fathom. Tracy has won one small concession, but not a total victory. The prosecutors dropped their opposition to McCarter's request to receive inpatient mental services in Florida under the advisement of her treatment team. She has been unable to leave New York City and is under electronic monitoring after her detainment at Rikers Island. Up until the Bragg's office was opposed to McCarter's request and change the terms of her bail to allow her to leave the city to receive treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder and suicidal ideation. Despite the prosecutor's change of heart, however, Judge Melissa Jackson denied McCarter's request to leave the state for treatment and set a new hearing for April the 5th, 2022. And when she goes up to court again, she will be before a new judge. It's a far cry from having charges dropped, but the prosecutor's action could signal a shift in how the new Manhattan District Attorney Office, which plans to meet with McCarter's defense team, which they may have met with them by now, because this was 2 weeks ago. They were supposed to meet with them approaching this high profile case. If convicted, Tracy could spend 25 years in prison. She is now 46 years old. Supporters of McCarter have been waiting for any sign that Bragg may actually do what he said he would do. Bragg might decline to, he said he was going to decline to continue prosecuting her in this case. His silence since the election has deeply troubled McCarter's supporters, family members, and those watching the case because they feel misled by this man. They feel like maybe this was the propaganda that he was sending out to possibly gain election, and now that he's gotten into office, he's not going to do anything. Now, if he don't, he will face a lot of backlash. He will. He'll suffer a lot of backlash because he didn't have to lie. I will try to make sure I keep up with what happens at the April 5th hearing to see what will become of this situation for this lady. But justice definitely has not been served in her case. Thousands of women die every year to domestic violence. You have so many women in the judicial system and incarcerated over domestic violence situations. During this broadcast, I'm going to make sure that the number for the domestic hotline abuse is going through the premiere so that if anybody knows anybody that knows anybody and they need a way out, they can get the number and call. That's it. That's pretty much all. I thank you all so much for watching. In closing, as always, remember you do not have to be great to get started, but you must get started in order to be great. Have a beautiful weekend, everybody. Peace.